Hey, what's happening? This is Leroy Downs with another version of the Just Jazz Cafe, man. And we've been talking to some real important people and, just making sure that we get everybody's feelings and how they doing at the time. And man, you're going to love who I have on with me today. As a matter of fact, let's pop on this gallery view. Up in that left-hand corner, brother Jason Moran. We got below him, brother Eric Revis. To the right of him, Mr. Nasheet Waits, and of course, the legendary Bennie Maupin, all here to talk about the music and what's happening in the world. What's going on, fellas?
How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, brother?
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here.
We good. Hey, man, we all got the legendary Bennie Maupin with us, man. What's going on, Bennie?
Everything now. I'm zooming. It took some effort to persevere through whatever it was, but I think now that I've upgraded my application, because I was in 4.2, you guys are in 5 point whatever.
Well,
it just wasn't working.
Well, let's talk about this. Let's upgrade, man, because it's 2020 right now, and we were all kind of children, back in the day. But the things that are going on in the world, man, I mean, you got the original version of it. So maybe you can speak on the times in terms of a relationship between what it is now and what it is then, or what it was then.
Well, it is what it is now. And, we've always been able to adjust and to forge forward, to move forward, So this is just another way to challenge ourselves as far as I see it. But, all the demonstrations and the various things that are going on, these things are absolutely long overdue. I feel, and the dialogues is taking place, the fact that so many people around the world are paying close attention to what's going on here. And, it's an amazing time as far as I'm concerned. And I am absolutely certain that some outstanding musical creations are going to come forth.
Oh, no doubt.
Not only music, but just art, because people are finally waking up that we have to do it. We have to do it. It's up to us to do it somehow. So, based on our history, the struggle always leads to development and innovation. So this is a very good time to innovate something.
No doubt.
You guys are my favorite guys. I mean, now that I've had a chance to spend time with the three of you in different situations, with Eric and Nasheet, with the trio, Jason over at the Ford Theater with a bunch of skateboarders, which was absolutely off the hook.
That was dope.
I had a second gig that night. I went to the second gig, and it was the shit that was coming out of me was just. I was a spectator, man. It was one of those kind of things, But but it really felt good, and it feels good to be able to have a conversation, with everybody here.
Yeah.
I was telling Leroy, I was thinking, I've been using, all we have is our imagination. So, thank God for that.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, this is what did I call it? The post-pandemic dream quartet.
Yes.
Right.
I definitely want to see something come out of that. Well, Jason, you're sporting the shirt, man. Go ahead, pop it up, man, so we can see what you got.
This is a We Wanted a Revolution shirt. It's really for an exhibition around Black women artists from 1965 to 1985 who were also
Ooh,
demanding representation in museums, which is also kind of like what, I feel like our music has always been about, like representation of our, of our interests, of our ancestry, of the possibilities of the future. And it occurs in all forms. And when
yeah.
we, like we've all traveled all around the world and we've seen how our music has been regarded or disregarded, right?
Mm.
Or boxed in or let go and allowed to be free. And then as
All of the above.
musicians, yeah, we work with each other to try to really pivot towards where does the freedom actually lie? How does it sound? How raw can it get, and because our stage is our space where we can manifest these ideas. Because when we walk back out into the real world off that stage, shit ain't like that. So it's powerful to be around you all again on this Sunday, just to remind myself that was the case, that was
Yeah.
a thing that we did consistently, that we got on stages and we transformed them and we transform our audience too.
Well, you talk about stages. I mean, at this point going forward, when you hit the stage again and you have an audience in front of you again, I mean, what are some of the messages verbally that you're going to communicate with them through the music? Are you going to, I know it's got to make you play different in some sort of sense, because this feeling of what's happening with everything that's going around, it's, it's in us. It's like we still focus on who we are and the art that we have to do, but there's this essence that's there, and it has to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I know for myself, I feel like this is really just the tip of the iceberg. Really, I feel like we've all been living this reality our whole lives. So the fact that everybody else, in terms of everybody else, I mean other people than the people that are being oppressed or suppressed under whatever regime or policies and whatnot, are speaking out and are protesting and are being affected directly by this. Like, seeing some people, getting arrested for the and they were, white folks and whatnot, getting snatched up just like everybody else. I was like, yeah, it's gonna take that in order for people to understand that this is a universal problem. It's not just the problem, like the racism, it doesn't just affect the people that it's suppressing, it affects everybody. It's like, we did a lot of projects and done some work about Frantz Fanon, and he's an incredible philosopher and psychiatrist who did a lot of work in Algeria for the revolution against colonial France. And one of the things that he was studying was the pathology that existed with the person who was the prisoner, and then the person who did the imprisoning. So everybody's affected by this. Everybody's affected negatively by this hatred that has its foundation in it's laid the foundation of America. And that's the problem right now. The people aren't acknowledging that it's in the foundation, it's in the fabric of this country. So, I mean, I've lived that my whole life. And so
we all have, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So I don't know if anything's going to change as far as that's concerned. I feel like what's changing now is people's realization of that. People really realizing that they're entitled. Why are you entitled? What are you going to do to give some of that power to the other people? I feel so. I don't know if, for me, I don't feel like anything's gonna. I mean, in terms of like what's gonna come out of my instrument, that has yet to be seen, because I haven't done much playing. The drums are looking at me like, you just come on, bro. You set me up a couple of months ago. What's happening over there? But I know anytime I'm fortunate enough to be on the stage or to share some music or be able to play some music with any of these brothers right here, it's special.
Yeah.
In the truest sense of the words. I mean, I've felt, you know, some feelings that I can't even describe with words working with these three other individuals. I consider them my brothers in the truest sense of the word. You know, I care deeply about them. You know, in times like this, things like that are have become even more pronounced in my reality. Is like how important the people who are important to me are, you know, and
Yeah.
how important their families are, how important their well-being is. You know, that has resonated even more for me. You know, so when we, you know, travel the world with each other and eat dinners with each other and meet each other in the lobby for all this stuff, I mean, it's like family, and this is
Yeah.
still continued through this
Yeah.
event. You know, I've been in contact with every one of these gentlemen, just checking. They've been checking on me too. Yo, is everybody cool? How are y'all doing? If y'all need anything, can I help you with anything? You know, so that's there. That's strong already. That we
Yeah.
have that bond.
So, yeah, man. So, Jason, you know, how rewarding is it working with Ava, you know, on all of these conscious projects, conscious film projects where she's talking, you know, she's letting people know what's happening. We're talking about the 13th and Selma, and I think you worked on.
Well, I mean, any of the projects that I feel like people do kind of leave a record of what the generation thinks about the atrocities that have happened before or currently. And Ava has kind of galvanized a lot of action and power around activism and really like lifted a lot of voices at once. So kind of she's her own revolution in a way. And so she's been a thrill to work with because they are very difficult projects to kind of like bring up to the surface. But also, I also think that for most of us, we also always want to attach ourselves to projects that kind of aim to uplift us as a people and also share the complexity of our stories, because that's the only thing that we've seen, you know, like whether it's James Reese Europe or Duke Ellington or Mary Lou Williams, you know, or Jerry Allen, like people amplify the beauty and the horror of what it is to make. So being with her and doing those films, that still, it seems like some people are kind of like watching for the first time, like watching 13th, having no clue
Right.
as to how this is what Nasheet said, how it's kind of like part of the fabric and the foundation of this country. That oppression is eye-opening. And like what Benny was saying, it was like people are hopefully waking up because we've been out here yelling. We've
No
been
doubt.
out here doing this, you know what I mean? I think some people are like, oh, that's what you're talking about. And it's like, so I'm happy that it's a part of the canon that we get to leave a record for.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you know, Nasheet, off the when we weren't recording, we were talking about a little bit of this looting, and I know it's happening in each one of our neighborhoods, and we all live in different places. What do you think the real message is behind this looting? Like, this is organized crime looting, and they're coming in right after a peaceful protest, you know. So who is it that's trying to distract from our message of Black Lives Matter?
I don't know. I mean, because I'm not out there in the street, so I can't give a concrete commentary on that. I just know that what I experienced wasn't necessarily looting. I would just say it was just theft. You know, it was like organized theft. So that was more like, so I feel like maybe there are some people who are part of the demonstrations and protests that are, you know, when things reach that level where you need to you know, break something or hit something or, you know, strike out. But I feel like a lot of that has been encouraged by some other forces that aren't necessarily or who definitely aren't in accordance with the message and the purpose of the protest. It's more about opportunism or about trying to create some dissent amongst the people who are protesting. So, I mean, there's a lot of that happening, but I feel like that's been observed for the most part. I mean, they've done, at least from what I've seen, like people have done a good job about talking about that. A lot of times when that happens, usually when it happens, nobody talks about that. They just show the images
Right.
of, you know, black and brown folks running into some store and taking a bunch of stuff out, but you don't get the backstory. You don't know that somebody else incited that, or somebody else threw the initial you know, brick through the window, was like, come on, let's go. And everybody was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and, I mean, if I see, you know, a couple of $1,000s worth of merchandise right
Them
there,
Yeezys.
yeah, 50 feet away from me, and I'm, you know, and I'm struggling, I'm gonna go ahead and get that, you know, and try to turn it over. So, I mean, that's just, that element is always a part of situations like this. But I feel like that's, it's that mess, that's not, that's not controlling the message of these protests.
You know,
Because
it's I got a thing. It's not to interrupt you, brother, but I got a
no,
thing
please.
from a brother in New Orleans, and they were documenting how all of these there were like 10 hotels in New Orleans that all of a sudden they had all these reservations, people from out of town, and they then all in conjunction with that, they saw all of these pallets of bricks being set up around the city. So, you know, it's like, I think that there has been a concerted effort on, you know, a certain faction to enable more discord and keep it. But, you know, that's part of something that has always happened, where
Right.
the emphasis will be taken, you know, Malcolm talked about this, is like, you know, you get beat up and media comes and blames you for getting beat up, you know, and I'm glad it's weird. I'm cautiously optimistic about things, but it's also interesting how this is like a perfect storm. You know, with the pandemic, usually, I mean, over the past 10 or 15 years, we've been, you know, kind of hoodwinked by social media and, you know, the 24-hour news cycle. Our outrage lasts about 3 days. People post some shit and it's like, oh, I feel great. And then, you know, it's something shiny over here. Let's go over here. With the pandemic, people have been sequestered. And so they have seen these images and they've had the time to think about this. And so even though it's a horrific thing going through a pandemic, for certain things, I think certain things will actually pan out in a much more positive light. And you know, and it's baby steps. We have, you know, people are talking about, you know, police departments. Okay, well, that's cool. But let's talk about, you know, the private prison system. Let's talk about all of these judges that have been, you know, like within the office that are, you know, traced back to like the Tea Party. I mean, this is like systemic change is actually systemic, you know. So
Yeah.
if hopefully, you know, these baby steps, I mean, shit, you know, the first part of a 1,000-mile trek is one step. So
No
we
doubt.
have this now. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm really looking forward to you know, what pans out. Hopefully we won't, you know, it just, people's rage will wane, you know.
Yeah, and oh yeah, right. The pandemic. I mean, I hear Jason knocking over bottles. Of what you drinking, man? Hey, what's going on?
Water. Yesterday, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, Benny. I mean, this is the first time for us we've ever been through something like a pandemic. I mean, has something like this happened in the past, and how's everybody coping with that?
Well, you know, I think all of your comments is appreciated. That's all I could say, because I've been here, you know, in my situation, and I'm isolated because I live alone. So when I look at the stuff that's in the media, and I see what they're projecting out into the public, and how that in itself produces the anxiety, and it brings out the real hunger that people have for freedom. Basically, that's it. And I hope that, you know, it ends up that the truth be told about all the looting and all that stuff, Madison Avenue programs us to want that stuff.
Mm. Mm.
So we're programmed on so many different levels, just through the hypnosis of the media. I mean, the proliferation of the internet has enabled the hypnotists, I call them, to really spin
Hmm.
the things that go so deep into our lives. We have no idea
Yeah.
how deep that stuff goes, you know. But in the times that I came up in the 60s and the 70s, it was very much right in your face. They didn't use the hypnosis as much because the technology wasn't there. But once the technology came into play, then that gave them carte blanche to completely poison the entire planet. And
Yeah.
that's what we see. What we see is the poison manifesting itself through the actions of these people. But I do believe that you know what you said, Eric, about pallets of bricks. What are they building? A
Yeah.
house?
Not a community.
Exactly. That just showed up. That just showed
They,
up.
hey, look, it's so many groups in America that are built on hatred, not only for Black people, but for all people. This is a country unlike any other country. And man, you know, we get a chance to experience it. But what we love the most collectively is being able to share our thoughts and our feelings with the people. And that's why what we do is so important, because the music is the medicine.
Yeah, it's
But
always,
it's so difficult to get the music out there.
and
You know, so
it always,
we have nothing, we have absolutely nothing to fear, I feel, you know, because the minds that are coming forward now and speaking, talking about Ava and how she's putting it out there, there's a whole bunch of people putting it out there and using the technology. That's the weapon, you
well,
know.
we all grew up with music, and it seems like the music and the nostalgia of it is always what's lasting with us. It's always something that we remember in our lifetime. And you guys are the musical
Yeah.
leaders, man. So you know, you put it out there, you put your statements out in song or spoken word, or you know, with no words at all, and you just title your project. It's going to be something to be remembered.
Well, you know, the development of music comes about as the humanity of the individual manifests itself, depending on what we absorb. So I think that, you know, our focus collectively is great because we're looking at it, but we're looking at it with very clear eyes, with an understand what happened historically to even get it to this level, and to realize the significance of it, and to realize, most importantly, is that we must protect our children. Yeah,
Well, that's something.
we
Yeah,
must protect our children,
no doubt.
and the surest way to protect them is to embrace them and get them to learn music.
Well, I
And
know that y'all
music
have.
and literature will do it. You know, that's all we had in the 70s. We didn't have the internet. If you wanted to read some shit, you had to go up on 125th Street and buy a book. You know,
A what? A
all
what?
you read, you know, Mr. Rogers and all of that shit. I mean, you know, it's really something. But I saw something the other day that I'm alarmed about, because they're already painting a picture of what will happen to children when they don't go to school.
Mm.
They miss being a part of what I consider to be the brainwashing program that they have, especially in the public schools, where the black children.
That's in every school. That's in every school,
Yeah.
Mr. Maupin.
It's in every school, but it's especially in the black schools, you know, where the poor kids go because they want to continue to maintain control. But the beauty of what we do is that we can give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope my deepest prayer every day is that, you know, this will come to where it comes to, and society will be peaceful enough to be able to go out again and embrace the people with the music, because they're hungry for it now. It's like they have been starved, they've been cheated, and those people who control everything, and there's probably a very small number of them. You know, I mean, we see how white supremacy works, and it works. It's just, you know, pervasive. It's everywhere. But the music is the only thing that is the real medicine. So let's just protect our children with the music. We have to find ways to just bring them into a space and just play for them.
Yeah, well,
And get them to play and get them to understand the significance of the literature, you know, because once you can read and you can write, then you're able to think. And they
well,
don't want a society of people who think and who can understand what it is and how to piece it together. So, you know, we just have to stay healthy. Let's
well,
just stay healthy and keep our communities healthy.
yeah.
You know?
The music is the magic, and you know, many of you have children, or if you don't, you're instructors and you teach children. I mean, Jason, what are you and Alicia telling your kids about?
I mean, you know, look, our neighborhood is raunchy already and like hot. So, you know, we are. I mean, look, anybody who has black children is having this conversation when they come out the womb, and is worried
Yeah,
about them from the moment they enter. So it's a thing that's constant in our household anyway. And
yeah,
there's, you know, and also as travelers too, like we bring our families on the road. So, you know, moving around from culture to culture is something that we have to also be careful about too. And but we
mm,
are a family that really believes in exposing the children. And you know, unfortunately, you know, have to be prepared for the test because they will come. And when the officer knocks on the door, you know, of your car, what happens if the officer hymns you up as you come through the turnstile at the subway, you know, and your parents ain't there? What's going to happen? And so in New York, you know, Nasheet lives in New York. Eric is out there in LA. We all have our kids, and I know we've been. That's just some I feel like it's everyday thing to talk about this.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
when
you know,
you
just go ahead.
no,
I'm
I was
sorry.
going to say when you look at your students and you see their development musically, I mean, can you see which ones are just going to get a career in music and live their life like that, or which ones are actually going to do something special with their gift? I mean, do you see
I,
that any?
I see great potential. I see great potential, and you know, when the potential is cultivated, wonderful things can happen because you never know what's going on in a kid's mind, you know, and the music that they listen to and the things that they absorb via the internet and all of that. That's going to be a part of what they express, you know. So we just have to cultivate it, whatever it may be. Allow them to express themselves always. I think that's what really enables them to become fearless in terms of how they live their lives. They realize, you know, so the potential, I recognize it in every kid, you know. I mean, I've had kids who were absolutely silent most of the time. And then all of a sudden, a major explosion of music, art, literature, painting. I mean, you just have to stand back.
Awake.
Yeah, that's the fear, that people will awaken, and people are awakening. I mean, they have no choice but to awaken. I mean, you can deal with a lot of stuff, but when it comes to being able to enjoy your life, that's probably the biggest challenge. Because there's so many things that just don't represent enjoyment, but they do represent development. So I think this is a developmental period right now. In the 70s and the period that I came up in, how explosive it was. We had so much turmoil and so much struggle right within our own ranks that I think only now we're healing from some of that, because it's generational. What's coming out now in the people that I'm meeting, the young people that I'm meeting, they know what happened. A lot of us during the 70s, we didn't even know the history. But,
Yeah,
but the kids now, because they do have access, and there are prominent people who are starting to speak up, they say, well, okay, they're understanding, that this is their time.
well, let's talk about actually some things in your time. I mean, there was Max and Abby who were putting it down, and
They were absolutely doing it. But the problem was they didn't have access. They didn't have access. They only had small rooms that they could say those things in. But I do remember one concert that left a profound effect on me. And it's interesting that you mentioned it, because it was Max and it was Abby. And it was in New York City. And I believe it was at Town Hall or someplace like that. But somehow they managed to get the resources, and they put on a concert in Town Hall. And all those pieces that they talked about and the things that they were doing, they presented all of it. They presented all of it. I'd never seen or heard them ever. And that just, the messages in what they were saying, that's what got me. That captured me and made me really think, how significant their period was. But, they hushed them up as soon as they could.
Well, the recordings live forever, man. And so,
Yeah, that's right.
that doesn't quiet the word, Abby,
Nope.
Max, and Nina, and all those folks. And today folks are doing it too. I just recorded 2 shows for KCRW, my normal show, where I called it For All the Georges, part 1 and part 2, and I just played all this conscious music. Siri trying to jump in my conversation over here, man.
Always listening.
Always listening.
Just to let you know. I see you.
I see all 5 of you guys. Okay, that's Leroy. That's Nasheet. Okay, hold up.
Hey, look, they got us.